Welcome to Short Movie Channel. Today, our movie begins with a group of people boarding a private jet at New York City's airport. The plane takes off, soaring through the skies, while the film gives us glimpses of the luxurious and wealthy lifestyle these individuals are living. After some time, the plane lands at its destination, and the wealthy passengers disembark to find a fleet of luxury cars waiting for them. Leading the group are the couple, Tony and Amber. They eventually arrive at the city's harbor, but when Amber sees the yacht waiting for them, she becomes visibly upset, considering it too ordinary and below her expectations. Tony tries to calm her down, reassuring her that the yacht is fine and that everything will go smoothly. Once they board the yacht, the captain greets them warmly, but Amber dismisses his welcome with an arrogant attitude. It's clear that she is a haughty and self-centered person. Meanwhile, one of the crew members, Joe, is annoyed by Amber's behavior and the captain's overly accommodating manner toward her. Nonetheless, Joe follows the captain's orders and escorts Amber and Tony to their cabin on the yacht. Inside the cabin, Joe introduces himself, mentioning that he's also a fisherman. Amber asks him about the gym facilities, and Joe sarcastically responds, showing her a basic exercise bike, saying, "This is the gym we have available." Amber loses her temper and yells at him, but Joe calmly adds that there's also a jump rope available for exercise. That evening, during dinner, a woman named Debbie passionately talks about the trip, which will take them from Greece to Italy. She expresses her excitement, saying she feels it will be an adventurous and enjoyable journey where they can all have a genuinely good time. Tony joins them at dinner wearing casual clothes, which irritates Amber since everyone else agreed to wear formal attire for the occasion. In the kitchen, Joe tells the captain he can deal with Amber's arrogance and attitude in the same condescending way, or even worse. The captain, however, advises him not to take things too personally, reminding Joe that he's being well paid for his job, which includes serving these people. The next day, everyone enjoys swimming and spending time in the sea, except for Amber, who refuses to get in the water. Joe tries his best to remain calm and polite with her, despite her constant provocations. Later, Amber gets on the basic exercise bike and starts engaging in a heated discussion about capitalism versus communism, wealth, theft, and fame. Joe listens to her remarks, finding her opinions irritating and shallow. He tells the captain that Amber isn't just arrogant and entitled, she's also rude and completely lacking empathy for those from different social classes. At one point, Amber provokes Joe by asking for water and a towel, which he begrudgingly provides, following the captain's instructions, despite his growing frustration. Then, when Joe serves them coffee in a simple teapot, Amber objects strongly, saying it's unacceptable to drink reheated coffee. Joe went to the kitchen, feeling frustrated and angry with Amber. He told the captain, "I can't take this anymore. Honestly, I'm thinking of getting rid of Amber and saving the world from such an annoying person." Later, while two women on the ship were sunbathing, Joe stopped two of his co-workers from spying on them. However, he himself stayed back, watching them from afar. That evening, everyone gathered to play poker while Joe spent his time fishing. During the game, they asked Joe about his opinion on using chemicals. He explained that while they had benefited some people, they had harmed many others. He added that the love of money and earning it quickly is a dangerous disease and that having too much money can easily corrupt people's morals and principles. The next day, during lunch, Amber complained about the food and said she absolutely hated the fish dish. At that moment, Joe lost his temper and dumped the food on her head. Amber screamed, calling for her husband, Tony, to do something. But Joe warned Tony not to try anything foolish, or he'd throw him into the sea. In an escalating moment, Joe picked up Amber and threw her overboard. However, it turned out that all of this was just a fantasy running through Joe's mind. Afterward, Joe took the food Amber didn't like and brought it back to the kitchen. The captain calmed him down and said it was all fine, asking them to prepare the food again. The captain, with his unusual calmness, went himself to apologize to Amber. She told him that she hoped they could handle their needs and requests better since they had paid a lot of money for this trip. The captain promised her that all their requests would be met. They all spent a fun day at the beach, and when they returned to the ship, Amber requested that they cook the fish they had caught earlier for lunch. When the chef saw the fish, he refused to cook it because it was of poor quality. However, they decided to cook the fish Joe had caught. When it was served for lunch, Amber actually liked it, even though it was the same fish she had previously criticized. That night, the ship was rocking heavily due to strong waves. Joe was carrying a fish down the hallway when he accidentally bumped into Amber. She was drunk and started flirting with him and making advances. When he tried to walk away, she stopped him and asked him to dance with her. But he refused, saying, "I'm not used to dancing with someone I don't like or care for." The next day, when Joe served them juice, Amber mocked his shirt and told him to change it. That evening, Amber, Debbie, and Marina played poker as usual, while their husbands were tired and asleep. Later, Amber went up to the deck of the ship. Joe noticed her and began watching her from a distance. When she realized he was there, she left the area. The following morning, everyone went to visit some caves on a nearby island, but Amber didn't join them. Instead, she asked Joe to take her there on a small boat. Despite his warnings about the strong currents in the area, she insisted on going. While they were in the middle of the sea, the boat's engine suddenly stopped. Joe tried to fix it, but it was no use. Amber started to panic as the current began pulling them further away. Joe told her, "I warned you from the start, but you didn't listen." Time passed, and they continued to drift with the current as night fell. With no other options, the two of them had no choice but to spend the entire night at sea. The next morning, Joe tries to fix the engine, but unfortunately, the wrench slips out of his hand and falls into the water. Joe jumps in after it, and while he's underwater, Amber wakes up. When she doesn't see Joe next to her, she starts screaming loudly, thinking he's either left her alone or drowned. When Joe finally resurfaces with the wrench in hand, she calms down a bit and tries to act strong and composed in front of him. She then asks him why her husband Tony and their friends haven't come with the boat to rescue them. Joe explains that the ocean is vast, and it's not easy to find them like that. Amber begins searching the boat for anything that might be useful. She's extremely hungry and thirsty, and eventually comes across a small box containing a gun. She asks Joe about it, and he tells her it's a flare gun. Later, Joe manages to catch a small fish for her to eat, but she's disgusted by the idea of eating it raw and throws it back into the sea. Joe gets frustrated and angry at her reaction. Suddenly, Amber spots a ship in the distance. She grabs the flare gun, intending to fire it to get the ship's crew to notice them, but the gun doesn't work. When Joe tries to take it from her to give it a shot, she refuses to hand it over. In the middle of their argument, the flare accidentally goes off and hits the boat, damaging it. The two are left clinging to the wreckage until nightfall, enduring harsh thunderstorms and strong winds. The next morning, they wake up exhausted, and Amber notices an island nearby. They swim toward it, and when they arrive, Joe tells Amber it seems to be a completely deserted island. Despite their dire situation, Amber continues speaking to Joe in a harsh and disrespectful tone. Fed up, Joe walks away. While exploring, he finds an old hut. When he opens it, he finds nothing inside but decides to turn it into a small shelter. He also crafts some tools for fishing and manages to collect a decent amount of fresh drinking water. Amber, watching Joe from a distance, sees him drinking water and becomes incredibly thirsty. When Joe heads off to fish with a spear he made, Amber sneaks behind him and drinks his water. Joe catches her in the act, and she smirks as if to taunt him. Meanwhile, Joe successfully catches a big fish and begins preparing it. Amber approaches him and says she'll buy some of the food from him, offering him a gold bracelet in exchange. Joe refuses, saying he doesn't want her money or her gold. Amber becomes furious and throws sand at him. Joe, in turn, slaps her across the face and tells her firmly, "I've put up with enough, and I'm the one in charge here." He orders her to wash his clothes, saying only then will he let her eat some of the fish. Reluctantly, Amber washes his clothes, and Joe allows her to eat. However, he refuses to let her sleep in the hut with him. Amber pleads with him, saying it's freezing outside, but Joe stands his ground and locks the door, leaving her to deal with the cold on her own. The next morning, Joe wakes her up and tells her to clean up the place properly. After that, he takes her with him while he goes fishing. He even makes her prepare the fish herself. When Amber tries to plead with him, he kicks her and says, "I won't show you any mercy. Every time you mess up, you'll be punished." A little while later, they go fishing again. Joe catches a large octopus, and Amber is terrified of it. He throws it at her, making her scream and toss it away in disgust. Then, when she wants to rest for a bit, Joe refuses and orders her to sing and dance for him. Amber reluctantly complies. Later, Joe heads to the rocks by the shore while Amber continues doing household chores. The next day, while Joe is sitting in front of his hut, Amber comes over carrying firewood. She also apologizes to him. At that moment, the two share a romantic moment, and Joe allows her to sleep in his hut. Over time, they grow closer and start enjoying their moments together on the island. Amber becomes more skilled at surviving on the island. One day, while she's gathering firewood, Amber spots a yacht in the distance, but she doesn't wave or call for help. That evening, as they sit together, Amber asks Joe if he'd prefer to be with someone younger. Joe replies, "I'm older too, you know, and I wouldn't want to be with someone much younger." Suddenly, it starts raining, so they run to the hut and spend the night there, just like always. The next day, while repairing their fishing net together, Amber confesses her love for Joe. He responds, "If it weren't for everything that's happened, you'd never have fallen for me. You would have kept treating me with arrogance, just like before." One time, while Joe is asleep, Amber manages to catch an octopus all by herself. She even has eggs with her and playfully throws them at Joe, making him chase her. They have fun and enjoy themselves, and Amber's attitude continues to improve and change for the better. One day, while they're on the shore, they spot a yacht in the distance again. But this time, Amber begs Joe not to draw attention to them or call out because she wants to stay with him. He tells her, "If you truly love me, you'll keep loving me even when we return to the real world." Eventually, Joe signals to the yacht, and they're rescued. They board the yacht, and the people recognize Amber from news reports. The captain informs her that her husband has been looking for her, and that she's been all over the news and newspapers since she disappeared. The captain also tells Joe that Amber's husband is a wealthy and influential man who will likely reward him handsomely. When they arrive at the harbor, Amber's husband, Tony, is waiting for her. He hugs her and thanks Joe for saving her, but Joe brushes it off, saying, "No thanks needed." Feeling upset, Joe walks away and heads to a bar to drown his sorrows. One of Tony's employees follows Joe and offers him a large sum of money as a reward, but Joe gets angry and turns him down. However, the employee leaves the bag of money anyway. Joe uses the money to buy a ring from a jewelry store. Later, Amber and Tony arrive at their hotel. Joe calls Amber, but she scolds him for disappearing like that. Joe confesses, "I love you, and I can't be without you. We have to figure out a way to be together." Amber replies, "I love you too. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Joe writes her a letter saying that a boat will be waiting for them the next morning to escape together. He leaves the letter at the hotel's reception desk with strict instructions for it to be given only to Amber. The next morning, Amber wakes up and heads to the reception desk. Just as the receptionist is about to hand her the letter, Tony arrives and takes it instead. The two leave in a helicopter. Tony hands the letter to a hotel worker, who delivers it to Joe. When Joe opens the letter, he finds the ring he had bought for Amber inside. Heartbroken, he runs to the helicopter, but it has already taken off. From the air, Amber cries as she looks down at Joe, who gazes longingly at her. In despair, Joe throws the ring into the ocean. And that's how our movie ends today. I hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you liked the video.